Nigel Farage, in many ways, is the consummate political showman, embodying both an instinct for populism and an apparent insatiable need for attention. And this self-indulgence, often mirrored in his political contemporaries like Donald Trump and the people he admires, ensures his continued relevance despite his failures to secure prominence, for his failures on 8 occasions to secure a Westminster seat. His self-awareness is limited, but not entirely without. He's not entirely without self-awareness. He understands his appeal, but often overestimates his ability to translate it into actual political success beyond headline-grabbing moments. And his relationship with other politicians, particularly Trump, showcases his role as the Trump whisperer, an unofficial emissary who revels in his access to power, even when it amounts to little more than a sort of casual friendship who's not allowed at the big events. His claim that Trump's administration would impose tariffs on the UK over the Chagos agreement demonstrates his reliance on sensationalism, a tactic that has served him well in the media but doesn't always translate into policy influence. Downing Street's dismissal of his claim as codswallop highlights how seriously or not he's taken in official circles. His rhetoric has found a new level of legitimacy, however, with his position as the leader of reform in Parliament, his control over four people, and I suppose his control over himself, and with figures like Lord Mandelson acknowledging Farage's growing influence, albeit grudgingly, this has propelled him to new levels of importance. And Mandelson, ever the strategic operator, and again a person gifted with a certain linguistic aptitude, sees Farage as a force to be managed rather than ignored, reflecting a broader shift in establishment attitudes towards populism. Reform UK, this latest vessel of Farage's ambitions, the latest vessel to be inseminated with the Farage personality, operates like a political startup, lean, aggressive, opportunistic. Its appeal is broadening beyond disaffected Conservatives, capturing a few Labour voters in the image of Lee Anderson, frustrated with Starmer's economic policy. And Farage's branding, anti-immigration, anti-net zero, anti-establishment, is carefully crafted to tap into public disillusion with both major parties. He paints Starmer as an uninspiring technocrat and the Conservatives as a rudderless entity in search of a reason for existence, raison d'etre. But for all his bluster, Farage remains a disruptor rather than a builder. And his influence... I was going to talk about this morning, as Lord Mandelson used the F-bomb the other day. So Farage has used the sort of Jonathan Ross ranking reference, describing all politicians as rankers. I hope that includes himself. I hope he's self-aware enough to realise that a Jonathan Ross ranking session is something Farage has indulged for a long time, but I have a feeling that that self-awareness has been eclipsed by self-abuse in the case of Farage, and I think he thinks of himself as an exception. He's really not. The Westminster is filled with second-rate ranking, and it goes all the way down. It stinks of self-indulgence, and there was a time when you get a new government in, and there would be 6 to 8 months, probably even more than a year, where there was a passion for achievement, at least on one side of the House. What we've got in the present House of Commons is a plethora of evasion and dithering, because nobody quite knows what they're doing. The Conservative Party is are self-obsessed, ranking each other. And certainly as far as Nadine Dorries is concerned, there are actually rooms for it. And the government is equally non-focused. It's already trying to dampen down speculation about what they're doing, because what they're doing is ineffective. It's self-obsessed. And Farage, well, his comments on politicians, they're all rankers, the lot of them, reveals his appeal to the headlines and his limitation. And this cynicism resonates with voters who feel abandoned by Westminster, but it also underscores his outsider status, preventing him from being taken seriously as a potential prime minister. The fact that that he can observe this obsession with stupracious behaviour, with onanistic self-indulgence, doesn't make him particularly observant, does it? The fact that he can't identify that he himself belongs to that group doesn't make him particularly self-aware or thoughtful. And that really is the problem. And there doesn't seem to be anybody in Westminster who's capable of seeing the thing in a broader, with a broader perspective, or who's capable of taking control. Farage's political future is tied to Reform's ability to sustain momentum, and while the party polls well, the lessons of UKIP and Brexit Party naturally, they suggest a natural ceiling for his support. Internal fighting, candidate selection issues, Farage's resistance to sharing the spotlight could all derail its growth. And in many ways, Farage mirrors Trump's trajectory, a media-savvy populist whose personal brand often overshadows his party, and his ability to dominate political discourse is undeniable. But whether he can parlay that lasting power remains an open question. For now, he thrives in this sort of in this sort of climate of right-wing insurrection as both kingmaker and disruptor. And if nothing else, British politics remains far more interesting, has become far more interesting because he's in it. But he sums the political culture. He sums up the political culture. He is the arch-ranking politician in Westminster, and he no matter how much effort he puts in, he achieves nothing. It's just another headline. He's just wasting paper and wasting time. He can achieve nothing, and that, I think, is the problem. All focus is on Farage. Well, but Farage is not the future. Let's get that very clear. Farage is not the future. And it may even be better if Farage were the future, but he isn't. Take it from me. As somebody who's had their run-ins with Farage, and I'm rather pleased with the language that I chose. I did a little imitation. I said, "Well, you can't toss this off over a pint of beer," and I think, as a metaphor, that was quite prescient. That was back in 2016, 2015, something like that, over Humza Yousaf and the identification of racism tolerated by Farage. And no matter what I said, that racism continued, and the person who had made racist jokes continued in power, and that was a fellow called Coburn, an MEP. Because Farage tolerates everything in everybody under his control because he doesn't care, because in the end it's all about Farage. But Farage will achieve nothing except for a few headlines and a little overindulgence. That's it.